Welcome to Chemical, Physical, and Ergonomic Risk Factors training. At the end of this training, participants will have knowledge about chemical, physical, and ergonomic risk factors. By the end of this training, participants will be able to acknowledge what physical, chemical, and ergonomic risk factors are. What is a chemical substance? A substance that exists in nature, produced, used in any process or arising from any process, including waste, regardless of whether it is manufactured or not, or whether it is placed on the market or not. Any substance consisting of one or more elements, compounds, or mixtures is referred to as a chemical substance. The first and most important step in controlling chemical risks is to understand their properties and their harmful effects on the environment and humans. Chemical substances are classified according to their physical and chemical properties, effects, and risks. On containers used for chemicals. On the labels found on the containers, packages, and packaging. The name of the chemical. Warning labels. Various occupational safety information. Hazard codes. Precaution codes. Read the label. First, you should understand what the substance is. Review the manufacturer's information. The physical or health hazards must be identified. Determine if there are any special handling conditions. Is the use of personal protective equipment (PPE) required? First aid procedures, fire response, and cleanup procedures in case of spills or leaks must be learned. Safety data sheet contents. Information is provided under 16 standard headings. 1. Identification of the substance/mixture and of the company/business operator. 2. Composition/information on ingredients. 3. Hazard identification. 4. First aid measures. 5. Firefighting measures. 6. Measures to prevent spread in case of an accident. 7. Use and storage. 8. Exposure controls/personal protection. 9. Physical and chemical properties. 10. Stability and reactivity. 11. Toxicological information. 12. Ecological information. 13. Disposal information. 14. Transportation information. 15. Regulatory information. 16. Other information. Hazardous chemical. Health, safety, environment. Acute or chronic harm can also be defined as chemicals that can cause damage. These harms can also be grouped under 3 main headings: sudden, repeated, or prolonged exposure that are harmful to health. Very toxic, toxic, harmful, corrosive, irritating, sensitizing or causing allergic reactions, carcinogenic, mutagenic, toxic to reproduction, teratogenic. Physical and chemical properties that pose a risk of harm: explosive, oxidizing, highly flammable, flammable ignitable, and flammable substances. Those that harm the environment. Substances that are toxic and harmful to living organisms, that do not break down in the environment and remain as chemical residues. Substances that accumulate biologically. Additionally, all chemicals that do not fall into the above classification but are harmful to health and living organisms due to their properties are also considered hazardous chemicals. Chemical risks. Health and safety risks of chemicals. Fire, explosion risks. Flammable or toxic liquids. Vapors. Gases. The possibility of new chemicals being released into the environment. Health risks. Health risks that can result from sudden, repeated, or prolonged exposure to chemicals, work-related illnesses, or even death. Toxic, very toxic, toxic, harmful substances. When inhaled, when absorbed through the skin, when ingested, accumulating in various organs of the body and causing occupational diseases, chemicals. Irritants and sensitizers, allergens. Irritants, chemical burns. Sensitizers, color change and stains. Irritants, sufficient time and concentration, when applied, are substances that can cause cell damage. Chemical burns, caused by a single, usually brief exposure. Chemical burns are mostly caused by organic and inorganic acids and alkalis, color changes and spots. Chronic poisoning from heavy metals such as silver, mercury, and arsenic can cause skin discoloration. Unstable explosives, substances and mixtures that react spontaneously, organic peroxides. Flammable gases, flammable aerosols, flammable liquids, flammable solids, pyrophoric liquids, pyrophoric solids, self-heating substances and mixtures, substances and mixtures that emit flammable gases when in contact with water, oxidizing gases, oxidizing liquids, oxidizing solids, gases under pressure, compressed gases, liquefied gases, cooled liquefied gases, dissolved gases. Abrasive for metals, skin abrasion, serious eye damage. Acute toxicity, oral, dermal, inhalation. Skin irritation, eye irritation, skin sensitization, specific target organ toxicity, single exposure, respiratory tract irritation, narcotic effects, respiratory sensitization, sex cell mutagenicity, carcinogenicity, reproductive system toxicity, specific target organ toxicity, single exposure, specific target organ toxicity, repeated exposure, aspiration hazard, harmfulness to the aquatic environment. Carcinogenic substances. Chemical compounds that can cause cancer are called carcinogens. Generally, after exposure to a carcinogenic chemical, a certain amount of time must pass before cancer tumor develops. Carcinogenic substances are classified into 3 groups by the European Union. Classified into 3 groups. Group 1. Substances known to be carcinogenic to humans. Group 2. Substances for which there is sufficient evidence that they are carcinogenic to humans. Group 3. Substances that may cause cancer but for which there is insufficient evidence. Mutagenic substances. A chemical compound that causes permanent structural changes in the DNA of a cell nucleus is defined as a mutation. Like carcinogenic substances, mutagenic substances are also classified into 3 groups by the European Union. Group 1. Substances known to be mutagenic in humans. Group 2. Substances for which there is sufficient evidence of mutagenicity in humans. Group 3. Substances for which there is a possibility of mutagenicity in humans but insufficient evidence. Toxic substances for reproduction. Refers to the effect of a chemical compound on fertility. Group 1. Substances known to be toxic to reproduction in humans. Group 2. Substances with sufficient evidence of toxicity to human reproduction. Group 3. Substances for which there is a possibility of reproductive toxicity in humans but insufficient evidence. How chemicals enter the body. The health hazards of chemicals enter the body occur through 3 routes. respiration, absorption through the skin or eyes, digestion by eating or drinking. Target organs. The toxic effect of chemicals depends on the sufficient amount of the chemical or its metabolite transformed form reaching the target organ and remaining there for a certain period of time. The skin, central nervous system, circulatory system, liver, kidneys, lungs, muscles, and bone marrow are the most commonly targeted organs. Chemical interactions. Two chemicals entering the body at the same time can affect each other's physiological effects in three ways. Independent effect. Both substances may have completely separate and independent physiological effects. Synergistic effect. If they act in the same direction and in the same way on the same organ, a synergistic effect occurs. Antagonism. The effect of one chemical can be neutralized by another chemical. 1 + 1 = 0. In other words, one substance may have an opposing effect on the other. Factors affecting the harmful effects of chemicals on health. 1. Physical and chemical properties. 2. Exposure method and duration. 3. Physiological characteristics of the exposed individual. Dust day. Dust has continued to negatively impact human health throughout history. People have been aware of this for many years and have been fighting against dust. Meanwhile, the great physician Ibn Sina stated that, if there were no dust, there would be no reason for human life to be less than 1,000 years. In our country, dust is frequently complained about in workplaces. One of the first recognized causes of occupational diseases is dust. Dust problems are encountered in various industries. The types of work that cause dust are very diverse. In fact, there is no work that does not produce dust. It is more accurate to think of places that produce little dust and places that produce a lot of dust. Dust negatively affects humans by entering the respiratory system, settling in the lungs, and mixing with the blood, thereby causing occupational diseases. Classification of dust in terms of its effects on human health. 1. Fibrogenic dusts. These are dusts that cause pneumoconiosis, such as silicosis and asbestosis. 2. Toxic dusts. Dusts that cause acute or chronic poisoning when ingested. These include heavy metal dusts such as lead, chromium, cadmium, manganese, and vanadium. 3. Carcinogenic dusts. These are dusts that cause cancer. Examples include asbestos, arsenic, beryllium, chromates, and nickel dusts. 4. Radioactive dusts. These are numerous, but the most important ones include uranium, cerium, zirconium compounds, tritium, and radium salts. 5. Allergic dusts. 6. Inert dusts. These are dusts that can accumulate in the lungs but do not cause any disease. Physical risk factors in workplaces. Noise, vibration, thermal comfort, air temperature, ambient temperature, air humidity relative absolute, airflow ventilation, thermal radiation radiant heat, light, radiation ionizing and non-ionizing rays, pressure low and high pressure. According to ILO, noise means all sounds that cause hearing loss, are harmful to health, or pose other hazards or noise. Dictionary definition is unintentional, unwanted, undesirable, or annoying sounds or noise. Industrial noise. Sounds that have physiological and psychological effects on workers in the workplace and negatively impact work efficiency are noise. Dosimeter. Devices that measure the exposure time and intensity of noise that may be harmful to the ear. They determine the percentage of harmful noise. These devices measure the pressure energy of sound. These devices determine the risk of noise exposure. The effects of noise on humans. Physiological effects. Hearing loss, increased blood pressure, changes in heart rate, circulatory disorders, increased breathing rate, increased sweating, nausea, headache, dilated pupils, psychological effects, behavioral disturbances, sleep disorders, excessive irritability and reactions, shouting while speaking, dissatisfaction, anxiety, headaches, stress, performance effects, decreased work productivity, decreased work quality, difficulty concentrating, slower movements, disrupted rest periods. According to a study, reducing noise levels by 25 decibels in a mechanical construction workshop resulted in a 52% decrease in the rate of defective parts. Hearing loss according to amplitude intensity. High amplitude loud sounds. Sounds with a deep pitch are loud. Sounds with high intensity are more harmful to our ears than sounds with low intensity. Low-pitched low sound. A sound with low amplitude is a low-pitched sound. Hearing loss by frequency. High frequency, high-pitched. The frequency of a sound that produces more waves in the same amount of time is higher. High-frequency, high-pitched sounds are more harmful to our ears than low-frequency, low-pitched sounds. Low-frequency, deep, low bass. The frequency of a sound that produces fewer waves in the same amount of time is lower. Hearing loss by age. As age increases, there is an increase in physiological hearing loss. In audiometric measurements, a decrease of 0.5 decibel is calculated physiologically for each year after the age of 40. Noise-induced hearing loss also increases with age. As age increases, hearing function also weakens physiologically. This type of hearing loss is referred to as presbycusis. Hearing loss based on personal sensitivity. Rhythmic sound. The waves of rhythmic sounds are soft. Noisy sound. In noise, the waves of sounds are sharp. Which sound is more harmful to the ear? It is not the musical quality of the sound or its source that causes inner ear damage, but the energy reaching the inner ear. Therefore, a beautiful melody and the noise of a drill reaching the inner ear at the same intensity cause equal damage. Legal measures. According to the regulations in our country, working more than 7.5 hours per day in noisy workplaces with noise levels exceeding 85 decibels is prohibited. In areas where heavy and hazardous work is not performed, noise levels must not exceed 80 decibels. In areas requiring higher noise levels, the noise level may reach up to 95 decibels. However, in such cases, workers must be provided with appropriate personal protective equipment such as helmets, ear muffs, or earplugs. Vibration is the mechanical oscillation around a point of equilibrium. These oscillations can be periodic, such as the motion of a pendulum, or random, such as the motion of a wheel on a bumpy road. In other words, the conversion of potential energy into kinetic energy and vice versa is called vibration. The characteristics of vibration are determined by its frequency, intensity, and direction. Vibrations, like sound waves, are waves that repeat and occur at a certain number of times per second. The main difference between sound and vibration is that sound travels through the air, while vibration enters the body through its hard parts. Like sound, the frequency number per second of vibration is measured in hertz. Effects of vibration on humans. Hand-arm vibration. When transmitted to the hand-arm system in humans, it poses a risk to the health and safety of workers, particularly to the joints, bones, joint, nerve, and muscle disorders. Whole body vibration. When transmitted to the entire body, it refers to mechanical vibration that poses a risk to the health and safety of workers, particularly causing discomfort in the lower back and trauma to the spine. Effects of vibration on the body. Biomechanics. psychological, physiological, pathological. The medical and biological effects of vibration are largely dependent on the intensity of the vibration and the duration of exposure. The frequency range of vibration that has a noticeable effect on the human body is 1 to 100 Hz. Effects of vibration on the body. Symptoms was higher at the beginning, then normal. Deformation in some tissues. Increased breathing rate. Increased oxygen and energy consumption. Decreased performance. Impaired subjective perception. Increased heart rate, hypertension. Disruption of MSS cell function. Decrease in blood glucose and glycogen concentrations. When the body is in motion. Vibration. In the sensory organs. Muscles, ligaments, and joints. In the inner ear balance organ. In the hair follicles and subcutaneous tissues of the skin. In capillaries, it causes harmful and permanent effects. At low frequencies, they feel shaking, and at high frequencies, they feel tingling and burning. Central nervous system complaints may occur during travel by vehicle, such as a car, airplane, or ship. Nausea, vomiting, and cold sweats may occur. Symptoms typically subside after a certain period following the end of travel. Frequency 230 Hz symptoms. With vibration, short-term exposure to temperatures of 8 to 10 degrees causes whitening of the fingers and palms, known as white hand, a dead hand, angineurotic disorder. If exposure to vibration continues, pain in the shoulders, fatigue, and sensitivity to cold may occur. Pain in the forearm and shoulder muscles may be observed. Frequency greater than 30 Hz symptoms. Back and waist pain, bone and joint damage in the elbow, pain and weakness in the wrist bones, vasomotor disorders, ischemia in the fingers, trophic disorders in the fingers, disc herniation related to whole body vibration. Factors determining the effects of vibration. The effect resulting from exposure of the entire body or hands and arms to vibration. The frequency of the vibration. The intensity of the vibration. The direction of the vibration. Duration of exposure to vibration. The age of the person exposed to vibration. The gender of the person exposed to vibration. The personal sensitivity of the person exposed to the vibration. The general health condition of the person exposed to vibration. The area where the vibration is applied. Mechanical vibrations caused by the interaction between the workplace or other work equipment and affect workers' safety. Whether there is any existing equipment that can be used instead of the current equipment to reduce the level of exposure to mechanical vibration. Whether such equipment is available, low temperatures, and other special working conditions. The employer shall take into account the following aspects in particular to minimize exposure to mechanical vibration and the risks it causes. Alternative work methods that reduce exposure to mechanical vibration. Appropriate ergonomic design and selection of work equipment that produces the least possible vibration. Providing seating locations that effectively reduce whole body vibration and hand-arm vibration. And hand-arm vibration, reducing handles and similar auxiliary equipment that reduce vibration transmitted to the hand-arm system. Appropriate maintenance programs for workplaces, workplace systems, and work equipment. The design and layout of workplaces and work areas. Providing workers with appropriate information, training, and instructions on how to use work equipment correctly and safely. Limiting exposure duration and intensity. An appropriate work schedule that includes sufficient rest periods. Providing appropriate clothing to protect workers from cold and moisture. Workers shall not be exposed to vibration exceeding the exposure limit values under any circumstances. If the exposure limit values are exceeded, the employer shall immediately take measures to reduce exposure below the limit value. The employer shall ensure that workers exposed to mechanical vibration exceeding the daily exposure action values for hand-arm vibration and whole body vibration undergo appropriate health surveillance. Based on the results of the health surveillance, if a worker is found to have a definable disease or adverse health effect assessed by a physician or occupational health professional as resulting from exposure to mechanical vibration at work, the employer shall immediately take all necessary measures to prevent or reduce the risks, including reassigning the worker to another job where they are not exposed to the risk. In maritime and air transport, where compliance with exposure limit values is not possible despite all measures taken regarding whole body vibration, and where the worker's exposure to mechanical vibration is generally below the exposure action values, but occasionally exceeds the exposure limit values, workers may be permitted to be exposed to vibration exceeding the exposure limit values for a period of up to 4 years, provided that it is confirmed that the relevant workers are subject to appropriate health surveillance. Thermal comfort. When we talk about thermal comfort in a workplace, we mean air temperature, humidity, airflow speed, radiant heat. In general, thermal comfort refers to the state in which the majority of workers in a workplace are able to perform their physical and mental activities in a comfortable manner, taking into account climate conditions such as temperature, humidity, and airflow. Air temperature, ambient temperature. Heat is a term for a quantity of energy. Temperature is a quantity that indicates how cold or warm an object is. It is the physical measure of air temperature. It indicates the level of energy, not the amount. It is the primary parameter of thermal comfort. Workplace ambient temperature is measured using dry mercury thermometers. Its units are Celsius, Fahrenheit, Réaumur, and Kelvin. Body temperature regulation. The human body's heat exchange, oxygen, salt, blood pressure, and acid-base balance must remain stable within certain limits due to various physical and chemical factors. Body temperature 36.80.436 to 37. Hypothermia less than 34. Normothermia 36 to 38. Fever 38 to 40. Hyperthermia 42 to 44. A 0.5 degree increase or decrease is considered pathological. Effects of high temperature 1. When the body's temperature regulation is disrupted, heat stroke occurs as a result of the body temperature reaching 41 degrees Celsius. This causes brain damage and death. Excessive sweating can cause heat cramps in the form of sudden muscle contractions. Heat exhaustion caused by fluid loss due to overexertion can lead to low blood pressure and dizziness. High temperature also causes skin disorders in the form of itchy red spots, mood disorders, difficulty concentrating, excessive sensitivity, anxiety. Effects of low temperature. Low temperatures are less common in industry. Cold work environments are more commonly found in cold storage facilities and outdoor work during winter. Low temperature or cold has negative effects on humans, including numbness, drowsiness, loss of sensation in organs, and frostbite. Effective humidity. Relative humidity in a workplace should be between 30% and 80%. Humidity in the environment is measured using a hygrometer or psychrometer. High relative humidity 80 to 100 at high ambient temperatures causes a feeling of suffocation and reduces a person's working capacity. Low ambient temperature combined with high relative humidity causes a feeling of coldness and shivering. Thermal comfort zone. Thermal comfort zone. The zone between the upper and lower limits of thermal comfort conditions in which people are most comfortable in terms of performing work and activities. Stress zone. The temperature and relative humidity combinations in an environment with no airflow where people feel stressed due to the difficulty of releasing heat from their bodies. Lighting. Definition and features. Vision is the most neglected sense in workplaces. Lighting is one of the most important physical conditions necessary for protecting the health of employees. Light is electromagnetic radiation in wavelengths that can be perceived by the human eye. Illumination is the amount of light falling on a surface. Its unit is lux. Lux is the number of lumens per square meter. Proper lighting in workplaces protects employees' eye health, prevents cumulative muscle and skeletal system injuries and many workplace accidents, and provides positive psychological effects. Therefore, it is essential to provide appropriate lighting in workplaces, especially in industrial facilities, according to the requirements of the work and process being performed. Problems caused by inadequate lighting due to prolonged eye strain include oculomotor changes, esophoria, exophoria, blurred vision, ocular pain, eye fatigue, itching, redness, burning, and other irritation symptoms, watery eyes, dry eyes, decreased ability of the eyes to focus and converge, color distortions, headache. Measurement of lighting. Measurements can be taken as instantaneous values at a specific point or as average values over a specific period of time. Light measurement is performed using a light meter lux meter. Instantaneous illuminance measurements. This involves measuring the illumination created by the conditions at the time of measurement. In this setup, it is possible to monitor the real-time changes in illumination by connecting the measuring device to an oscilloscope. Requirements for good lighting in workplaces. The purpose of lighting is not to achieve a certain level of brightness, but to provide good visibility conditions. Good workplace lighting depends on the type of work being performed. Sufficient intensity, uniform, well distributed, shadow-free, glare-free. Light intensity, light color and color rendering, light distribution, direction of light and shadow effects, prevention of glare limitation, surface to be illuminated light utilization, equipment to be illuminated, structure of the illuminated surface. Dirty and dark colors reflects 10 to 12% of light. Clean and light colored reflects greater than 90% of light. Matte or glossy surfaces. The positive effects of good lighting. Improves visual acuity, the eye's ability to distinguish details. Objects are seen more clearly. Prevents or reduces workplace accidents. Improves workers' success and performance. Ensures speed and quality in work performance. Natural lighting. Lighting should primarily be provided by sunlight. Artificial lighting. Artificial lighting is required when natural light is insufficient or completely absent, such as during nighttime operations. Artificial lighting is provided by electricity whenever possible. When other lighting devices are used, care must be taken to ensure that the air quality is not compromised and that there is no risk of fire or explosion. If light is directed directly to the work area, it is called direct lighting. If it is reflected off another surface before reaching the work area, it is called indirect lighting. And if it only illuminates the work area, it is called semi-direct local lighting. Workplaces must be adequately lit by daylight. In cases where daylight cannot be used due to the nature of the work or the construction of the workplace, or in the case of night work, adequate lighting shall be provided by artificial light. Both natural and artificial lighting shall be arranged in such a way as to ensure that light is distributed sufficiently and evenly to all workers. In workplaces where artificial lighting is used, electric lighting shall be used where electricity is available, and the installation shall be carried out in accordance with technical standards and conditions. In workplaces connected to a central lighting system, in case of any malfunction causing the lights to go out, sufficient backup lighting equipment must be provided, and in areas where night work is carried out, backup lighting systems that can be activated automatically, preferably, must be installed in the necessary locations. In areas where there is a risk of fire damaging the backup lighting system, reflective signs, phosphorescent paint, battery-powered lamps, or similar measures will be installed in appropriate locations. Courtyards, open areas, outdoor paths, passageways, etc. In workplaces shall be illuminated with a minimum of 20 lux. Areas where rough materials are transported, transferred, stored, etc., as well as work passageways, corridors, roads, and stairs shall be illuminated with a minimum of 50 lux. Places where rough assembly, opening of bales, grain grinding, and similar work is carried out, as well as boiler rooms, machine rooms, passenger and freight elevator cabins, material storage warehouses, changing and washing rooms, canteens, and toilets shall be illuminated with at least 100 lux. Areas where normal assembly, rough work, canning, packaging, and similar tasks are performed shall be illuminated with a minimum of 200 lux. Areas where detailed work requiring close inspection is performed shall be illuminated with a minimum of 300 lux. Areas where dark-colored textiles, office work, and similar tasks requiring constant attention are performed must be illuminated with a minimum of 500 lux. Radiation. Radiation is a Latin word used in our language as emission. The energy emitted from atoms, the sun, and other stars is called radiation energy. Who is responsible for the use and control of radiation in workplaces? Ionizing and non-ionizing radiation. Ionizing, capable of removing electrons from atoms, particles alpha, beta, neutrons, wave gamma, and X-rays. Non-ionizing cannot remove electrons from atoms, infrared, visible, microwave, radio wave. Ionizing radiation damages human cell structure. Non-ionizing radiation, on the other hand, does not cause any changes in cell structure unless exposed to it for a very long time. When ionizing radiation reaches a cell, it causes certain chemical changes and leads to the formation of unwanted products in the body known as oxidants. Biologically, ionizing radiation includes alpha, beta, gamma, and X-rays. Non-ionizing radiation is a type of radiation that does not have enough energy to ionize atoms in cell structure but can cause excited atoms. Non-ionizing radiation, infrared, radio/TV waves, microwaves, cell phones does not cause changes in cell structure unless exposed for very long periods of time. It can be said that it is less harmful than ionizing radiation. The radiation emitted by the electrical appliances we use and the radiation emitted by our bodies to maintain a constant body temperature fall into this category. Radiation damage. Dryness in the throat, eye problems, headache, allergies, facial redness, insomnia, sensitivity to sounds, hearing difficulty, fatigue. Usage advantages. Laser welding can be performed in a very narrow area. Used for welding sensitive electronic components, such components cannot withstand resistance welding. Laser welding can be performed in a vacuum environment. Workpieces can be processed with a laser without being clamped in fixtures, thus avoiding stress in the material. Welding is performed without the need for additional materials or equipment. Different metals can be welded together. Heat treatment can be limited to specific areas of the components. Radiation applications that do not provide a clear benefit to individuals or communities against radiation damage should not be permitted. Example: the construction of nuclear power plants in Turkey. Radiological applications for occupational, legal, or health insurance purposes should not be justified unless required by professional organizations, unless there is a clinical indication, and unless significant information related to the individual's health is. Applications should not be justified unless requested by professional organizations, unless there is a clinical indication or significant information related to the individual's health is expected. In applications, the number of individuals exposed to radiation, the magnitude of the individual dose, and economic and social factors should be considered to maximize the clear benefit, ensuring that the lowest possible dose is achieved. ALERA as low as reasonably achievable. Achieving the lowest possible dose. Pressure. Pressure is the force applied to a unit area. There is pressure at every point where force is applied. Symptoms observed at low pressure. Due to the decrease in pressure, gases dissolved in tissues under normal atmospheric pressure are released and cause the following symptoms in the body: pins and needles in various organs, pain in the arms and legs, ear pain, blurred vision, anemia, decreased oxygen levels in the blood due to a decrease in the partial pressure of oxygen in the body. Tachycardia may occur. Increased heart rate. Acute harms of low blood pressure. Sudden drop in blood pressure. Itching. Subcutaneous emphysema. Muscle and joint pain. Tinnitus and hearing loss. Dizziness. Hyperthermia. Edema. Tachycardia and myocardial infarction. Euphoria, psychiatric disorders, epilepsy, paralysis most commonly in the lower extremities, and Meniere's syndrome is permanent. Complaints seen at high pressure. When pressure exceeds 4 atmospheres, a person may inhale excessive amounts of nitrogen, leading to nitrogen narcosis and causing the following symptoms in the body: impaired decision-making, thinking, voluntary movements, and loss of consciousness, and in advanced stages, coma due to increased oxygen partial pressure. When the individual returns to normal pressure, these symptoms disappear immediately. If the nitrogen in the pressurized air supplied to the breathing apparatus is replaced with helium, the onset of nitrogen narcosis can be prevented. Acute damage from high pressure. Sudden increase in blood pressure. Headache. Ear and tooth pain especially indicate teeth. Dizziness. Pain in the ears and facial sinuses. Abdominal pain. Loss of consciousness. Young and experienced workers should be selected for jobs requiring low and high pressure. Workers should not be obese, alcoholic, or have chronic respiratory diseases. Periodic examinations should be conducted with great care. Those with acute symptoms related to the ears, nose, throat, and respiratory system should be kept away from work until they recover. Those who have been injured or become ill under pressure should not be allowed to return to work. There should be a decompression room in workplaces where work is carried out under high pressure. Additionally, smoking, drinking alcohol, and consuming carbonated beverages should be prohibited during work performed under pressure. Ergonomics concept. Ergonomics Greek. Ergon, work nomos, law. It can also be defined as the application of biological knowledge in the fields of anatomy, physiology, and experimental psychology for the achievement of a human-machine environment system that optimally balances workload and work capacity, protects the health of employees, and increasing production. Importance. It is the science of personal work. It studies the human organism and its abilities to provide the necessary conditions for the adaptation of work to the individual and the individual to work. It enables people to recognize their abilities and use them effectively, prevents excessive strain on the human body during work, and, through this adaptation, increases work performance. The purpose and scope of ergonomics. Ergonomics deals with the relationship between people, machines, and the environment. The following questions clarify this scope. How high should your chair be to ensure that your desk is comfortable to work at? Is the air in your workplace too hot or humid to be comfortable? Is the noise level at the workplace high enough to harm the health of employees? How should rest breaks be scheduled to minimize fatigue? It aims to provide solutions to such issues. The purpose and scope of ergonomics. Ergonomics. Industrial workplaces, agricultural operations, offices, schools, hospitals, hotels, homes. In other words, anywhere where people work, it can be applied. Ergonomic principles. Designing easy and fast operation. In the organization of work methods, control of physical factors in the workplace are applied. To ensure a natural posture, the monitors, position and height of the monitor. Ensuring a natural working posture by adjusting the height of the workstation is adjust it to the appropriate height. Work to minimize pressure on the neck and lower back, designing workstations at the same height. Ergonomics. The physical and mental characteristics of employees, physical and mental characteristics, and work and working conditions. Ergonomic risk factors. Health-related adverse consequences of poor ergonomic systems. Working in job systems with poor ergonomic design results in the development of cumulative injury disorders (CID). These include trauma-related diseases, cumulative trauma disorders, work-related musculoskeletal disorders, repetitive motion strain injuries, overuse injuries, overuse syndromes. If ergonomic factors are not taken into account, productivity decreases, lost time increases, absenteeism and turnover increase, work-related errors increase, work quality decreases, employees' physical and psychological problems increase, workplace accidents and occupational illnesses increase. Work environment exercises. When performing neck exercises, it is important to keep the neck straight. Therefore, a neutral position is first established. The head is tilted backward until the neck is straight. Meanwhile, the face looks straight ahead. The exercises are performed while maintaining this position. Slowly turn your head to the right and then to the left and hold for 8 seconds. Slowly bring your ears toward each shoulder, then hold for 8 seconds. Bring your chin forward to stretch the muscles at the back of your neck. Wait for 8 seconds. Raise your shoulders toward your ears. Hold for 3 seconds. Then try 5 times moving your shoulders forward and backward in a circular motion. 5 times. Grasp your elbow from behind with your hand and try to stretch it in the opposite direction. Then bring it forward until you feel a stretch in the opposite shoulder and hold for 8 seconds. Interlace your fingers, keeping your palms facing forward, and stretch your arms without bending your elbows. Hold for 8 seconds. With your hands in the same position and your head behind you, push your elbows backward and hold for 8 seconds. With your palms facing upward, bend to the right and left in turn and hold for 8 seconds. Cross your arms behind your back, pull your shoulders back, and arch your lower back, holding for 10 seconds. With your foot flat on the floor, rotate your knee and torso in opposite directions until you feel a stretch. Slowly lift your leg upward. Rotate your ankle in a circular motion, then stretch it forward and backward, holding for 10 seconds. Perform stretching exercises for 3 to 4 minutes every hour. Repeat the movements several times in both directions. During the exercises, you should not feel any pain or strain other than the sensation of stretching.